Today I want to talk about a couple of different parenting courses that I've taken and how I have come to the realization that my ability to be with myself and feel my own emotions is what enables me to be a better parent. So one of the courses I took is called the Circle of Security. And the basic idea is that there's a circle, your kids are either with you needing some kind of emotional regulation, or they're going out into the world and being curious. And they're like going out and then they're coming back to you when either something's going well and they want you to delight in them, or if something's going wrong, they need to feel safe and comforted and figure out how to regulate their emotion. Organize, I think they call it organize your feelings. And then the other philosophy that I've looked at a lot is the Dr. Gordon Neufeld Institute philosophy. And in that one, he has the idea of a roundabout. So it's like there's a frustration happening. The child is doing something. They're kind of like out in the world doing something. And there's a frustration that happens. So they come into the circle of how are they going to deal with this frustration. And the one choice that a parent can always make is to try and fix the problem for the child. So in that case, the child then goes on and the problem was resolved without them having to really fully feel their frustration. The next exit on the roundabout is adaptation, and that is when they have something called tears of futility. And the idea, or based on the research done by the Dr. Gordon Neufeld Institute, there are stress hormones in our body. When we are up against something in the world that is not working for us, we have a stress in our body, and if we can have these feelings of futility fully flow through our body, that stress, the stress hormones leave, and we are then able to adapt to the situation at hand and think more flexibly and come up with a different solution. So that's kind of the ideal where you want to be. And I relate this in the Circle of Security, they call it being with. So you're being with your child while they're having their feelings, and you're they don't necessarily, because the other thing I want to talk about is boundaries and setting boundaries for your children. And so I think there's a lot of confusion around boundaries. Anyway, so with the Dr. Gordon Neufeld, we have, you can fix it for your child, you can help your child adapt by allowing them to have their tears and like really drain all those stress hormones, and then move on. They become relaxed and they're able to like let go of the thing that's not working and figure out something new. And then the last place is if they're not allowed to have their tears of futility, they kind of get trapped in this place of anger, whininess, like stubbornness, and that kind of thing. I'm going to put a couple of documents in the video so that you can get a snapshot of that. Now, I think what I've just realized is that with the Circle of Security, they talk about parents either having being harsh and unkind in setting boundaries, or they have parents that are weak and basically don't set boundaries. And what they want us to be is in the middle. So being with your child, taking charge when you need to, but also being kind. And what I've kind of just realized is that the people that are really being harsh with their boundaries and the people that are not setting boundaries, they just don't want to be with those feelings. Like that's really, it's not so much about whether you set boundaries or not. It's that when something's not working for your child, are you able to just be with them while they feel angry, while they feel sad? In the Circle of Security, they had like 6 core emotions, and it was sadness, anger, fear, curiosity, joy, and shame. So it's like if you're able to sit with your own shame, you're able to sit with your child's shame. But even if you're not able to fully sit with all of your feelings, I feel like for me, it's like understanding the framework of these. Now I'm doing it from maybe more of an analytical point of view than other people. Maybe this doesn't necessarily connect with everyone, but it's for me, knowing that, okay, my child is having a meltdown, and this is a good thing. I get to be there with them. It's making me feel uncomfortable, but I can choose to take a few deep breaths and just let them know I'm there with them. And I'm going to do my best to mirror what they're saying. And I mean, if it gets to the point where I'm getting triggered and I'm no longer able to regulate myself, then I have to be able to say, look, I got to step away. I need a few minutes for myself. Mommy needs a timeout. But I'm not allowing my emotions to override my ability to be there for my child. And I think the people that set really harsh boundaries, well, maybe it's both sets of people, but I feel like people that set harsh boundaries a lot of the time really see someone being flexible and think that you're not setting boundaries. And I just don't think it's about the boundaries. Like, I think the word boundaries is like, the child has a boundary in themselves. Something is not working for me. Like, if you take the Brene Brown boundaries, like the concept of the basic definition of boundaries, it's if something is okay or not okay for me. So just because something is not okay for me doesn't mean that I am going to be able to change it. Right? And that's going back to the roundabout. It's like, if something in the world is not okay for me, I need to have my feelings of futility about that thing. And it doesn't mean I'm going to all of a sudden change that boundary in myself, but I'm going to find a flexible way to adapt to the reality of what is, rather than staying stuck in this, like, it's my way or the highway, and I'm also not going to move on, right? Like, there's like, yeah, the stuckness is a big thing that I think happens with, and especially in relationships between parents and kids. It's like, if a parent gets really stuck in this, like, you must obey my boundary, you're not giving, well, I guess you obey the boundary, but give space for the child to fully tell you how much they hate you for it. They're angry, they're sad, they're disappointed, they're frustrated, and be like, yeah, I get it. It's very sad, it's very frustrating, but at this point in time, this is all I can offer. This boundary is here. I can't change that. And so the things that I want to start looking at is all the different ways that we can set boundaries with kids. And it can be, for example, I've seen one Dr. Gordon Neufeld seminar where they were talking about, like, actually scheduling the temper tantrum into the weekend. So let's pick a time to set a boundary when I'm in a good state of mind. I'm calm, I'm relaxed, the other kids are at play dates, and that's when we're going to implement a boundary. And you can let your kid know in advance that you're going to set a boundary, right? Okay, 3 more days of like unlimited TV, and then we're going to start cutting that down. And you know that day that you implement that boundary or that new way of being, there's going to be a lot of big feelings about it. But you want to organize that whole thing so that you are in a really good space yourself, and so you're able to fully be there with your child while they're having these big feelings, and you're not in a state of frustration yourself where you're not able to hear them. Another thing is routines, rituals and routines. So if there's an established way of doing things, and that taking the time to establish that takes a lot of effort. I think applied behavioral analysis is something that can be looked into for parents that have a hard time setting up routines. You can hire someone to help you set up some, like, this is how we brush our teeth, and we do this every night at this time. And I've even seen people get like occupational therapists or applied behavioral analysis people to help their kids learn how to cook or whatever, like any kind of getting up, getting ready for school type of thing. There are rituals and routines that can be put in place. And then that takes away the need for you to constantly be like badgering and putting yourself in an oppositional relationship with your child. So there's the rituals and routines to get your life kind of moving. There's when you need to change a big boundary, or when you can tell that your child has a lot of stress. Like my kids come home sometimes near the end of the school year and they're just like, you can tell that they need a break, right? So that's where you want to open up conversations, let them know you can see that they're stressed, and try and figure out ways to give them the space to express what's going on. So that one I would almost say is like, if your child is being a dick, it's probably because something's bugging them, and that's your cue that they need you. Not, oh, that's your cue that you need to implement a harsher boundary and like shut them down because they're being a dick. It's, oh, I get to be there for my kid. And it's a really hard one to remember when it's happening, because if they know how to push your buttons. If they're able to trigger you, then you're going to be less likely to respond in a calm and loving and being with kind of a way. And then when it comes to setting boundaries, it doesn't even have to be like, for example, with a cookie. Like, I've had times when I've been like, well, it's not that you can or cannot have the cookie, it's the way you're asking. So your anger or your demandingness is not going to get you the cookie. But I'm not saying you can't be angry. I'd love to hear all your anger. It's just the anger is totally separate from whether or not you're going to get the cookie. And there's lots of really good kids books that have characters in them. Like, I'm thinking of Bad Guys. There's a character, the piranha, who when they're on one of their adventures, he's eating burritos for comfort, and he's like, leave me alone, I'm eating for comfort, or whatever. So that's a funny way of being able to talk to kids about how it's normal for people maybe to want a cookie when they're feeling sad or angry or frustrated, because it gives them a feeling of comfort. But I don't want you to grow up to be someone who needs to reach for something else to have comfort. So I want to, like, let's deal with this feeling first. I'm here. I love you with all your feelings in every way that you present yourself. I love every piece of you. Tell me all about the feeling, or let's just be together while you have this feeling. And then after we're done, if you still really want a cookie, you can have a cookie. So yeah, that's just a couple of ideas. I'd love to hear more ideas of how people are able to be with their child, allow them to have their feelings while still not allowing them to think, or yeah, I don't know what that is, like either the too harsh or the weak boundaries. Like, it's not about letting them just like be there with their crap without having anyone to support them. It's really being there with them while they have their feelings. So love to hear what you have to say.